Howdy folks, hope everybody doing real good. Sunday in the South. Buttermilk Biscuits on the menu this morning. This is going to be one video of a two-part video series. The next video that's going to be released after this one will be tomato gravy. A lot of folks never heard of tomato gravy, never had tomato gravy. It's a southern staple, but not necessarily. A lot of folks in the South never even heard or had tomato gravy. It's something country folks has made over the years. But for right now, we got to get some biscuits made up for that gravy. And these are going to be traditional, fluffy, layered southern biscuits. And I'm going to be using butter. You can use different type of fats in southern style biscuits, lard, vegetable shortening. You can cut the fat in, but instead of doing that with this, like it's done a lot of times, I'm going to use a cheese grater. Now, I got a little block of butter here. It's been in the freezer for about an hour. As long as that butter's good and cold, you can grate it. It's just easier to deal with. It incorporates better into the flour. And I've got 2 cups of self-rising flour. This is white lily flour. White lily makes a real good southern biscuit. It's made from a winter wheat that is softer, and it just makes for a better biscuit. So that's what I'm using. That's what I recommend you use if you can find it. If you don't have any self-rising flour, you can add your baking soda and baking powder and a little pinch or 2 of salt to all-purpose flour. You can find how to do that on the internet. You can use a rolling pin, or you can smash it out with your hands. You don't have to have it. I've got a biscuit cutter. You don't have to have a fancy-ass biscuit cutter. You can pinch them off and shape them however you want to. And we're going to actually bake these in a cast iron skillet. Going to go in the oven, and we're going to run the oven pretty warm, about 425. And the last special ingredient I use for these biscuits, some bacon grease. We're going to coat the inside of that skillet with some bacon grease, and I'm also going to brush a little bit on my biscuits. It just gives the biscuits a really good flavor. So before this butter starts warming up, let me get it grated, and we'll get this put together. For some reason, while I'm grating this butter, I got something stuck in my head from an old Krispy Kreme commercial. It goes, "Time to bake the donuts, time to make the donuts." I feel like it's time to make the biscuits, time to make the biscuits. And I don't bake homemade biscuits a whole lot. I actually usually use a frozen biscuit because it's messy. But it's not complicated, and it's not hard to do. You know, you talk to folks, they'll act like there's some kind of special art in behind it. But it's not. And the way I'm doing it here, it's pretty darn easy. I got most of that butter grated up there. I guess that's about a stick. It don't really matter. If you use more than that, it ain't going to make no difference. But you do want to at least have a stick in there, or you may end up with a little bit of a dry biscuit. And the only thing worse than a dry biscuit is a dry sandwich. Alright, I got my mixing bowl there. I had it in the freezer. I'm going to try to keep all this stuff cold. I'm going to add about 1 cup of this flour. And I'm going to get some of this grated butter in here. And do not touch this butter with your hands. This stuff will turn into a blob once it's grated. Get some of that in there. Let's get some more flour on top. So that's 2 cups total. Get some more butter in. Get on in there. Butter good. So we're just going to kind of mix this together. I'm going to get this pinch of salt in there. That's about 1/4 of a teaspoon. Make a little well in here. Buttermilk in. Start incorporating this flour and buttermilk. And we want it just to mix together. enough to kind of stay together. Don't want to overmix it at this point. Time to get in there with the hands a little bit. I told you it's a messy. I'm going to add just a little more flour. It's a little too sticky right off the bat. That look pretty good. Let me get this countertop floured up and we'll get this rolled out. Get the rolling pin floured up here a little bit. Alright, we're going to roll this out a few times and fold it over a few times. By folding it over, we end up with a layering effect. And I'm trying to use this instead of my hands to keep this from warming up. It's a little too sticky here. I'm going to add a little flour. Roll her out again. And it ain't got to look pretty. It will come together. A little too sticky. We're just going to keep rolling and flouring until it starts fighting with me. And it's starting to stiffen up. Once it starts fighting with you, you know the gluten is activating in the flour. And you don't want to roll and fool with it too much more after that. So we've folded about 6 times. I'm going to do one more time. And then we're going to cut some biscuits. And I want this to be about a 1/2 inch, somewhere in there. That looks pretty good. Go ahead and cut us out some biscuits. We're going to put some bacon grease in the bottom of this skillet. It's going to be extra good. And we're going to get these biscuits laid in here. Just like it. Let's roll this out and get some more. If I can get one in the middle. Let's take a little look here, see what we can come up with. Alrighty. Look pretty good. The oven's almost heated up. We're just going to brush the top piece with a little bit of this bacon grease. And these is just under about a ½ inch thick, so I think maybe 15 minutes. We're going to bake at 425. Let's get them in the oven. Biscuits going in. We'll take a look at them here in about 15 minutes. Be back shortly. The biscuits been in here kicking along about 15 minutes. Let's see what they're looking like. Oh yeah, they look pretty good. Sure enough. I'm going to put them up here under the broiler just a minute. Kind of brown the top just a little bit more. And there's the biscuits. Look pretty good. And the last thing to do, we got a little melted butter here. We're just going to brush them up. Southern style buttermilk biscuits. And they not hard to make. There's no magic tricks or sorcery involved. Just whoop it up in a bowl, roll it out a few times, fold it over, put her in the oven. Coating the bottom of that old cast iron skillet and brushing a little of that bacon grease on top, something my grandmama used to do. She always put a little bacon grease in the bottom of the skillet, but she used lard. She cut lard into her biscuit dough. I used the butter because I can grate it. It's just easier, and you turn out with a biscuit that's real good. I think the butter actually causes your biscuits to rise a little bit better because there's water in butter, and water steams, and it help fluff the biscuit up a little bit. There's no water in lard. But I'm going to let these cool here a few minutes. That's a beautiful biscuit. And then we'll look inside of them. Be back shortly. These old biscuits cooled off a little bit. Let's take a look at them here and see. See what we got. You see how they're kind of layery? That's from all that folding. Take a bite. Bottom's a little crispy. Add a little bit of bacon grease. Outstanding flavor. That's a good biscuit right there. It's going to be good with some tomato gravy on it. We'll get that fixed up here shortly. Peace.